This is a doozy of a question. When should I give up on my marriage? My name is Paul Friedman. I founded the Marriage Foundation, and we are actually here to help those who want their marriage to work. And I started this many, many years ago. I used to be a divorce mediator, and you might say that what's the word? I earned my merit badges with the most difficult cases. The cases not just where people were thinking about getting a divorce, not just thinking about giving up on their marriage, but I used to go speak at the second Saturday divorce support groups for women and then later for men, and I would offer them my assistance with the discoveries that I made in marriage that are very, very different from those that are offered by, you might say, standard traditional marriage counseling, which as a divorce mediator, that's where I got all of my clients. And so I know all about giving up on marriage because before I shifted, all of my clients had given up on their marriage. They were good people, like you, like your spouse. But they didn't know what to do. They had exhausted all of the suggestions, all of the ideas that they had come across, and it was just torture to remain together. So the way I began, and I'm going into this for your benefit, so you can understand that I didn't just develop like cute little ideas, little homework things and stuff like that you would normally get at a marriage counselor. I came up with a step-by-step process. And it begins with, and I'm going to go through these steps now for you, because I don't want you to give up on your marriage. So briefly, I'll tell you when you do give up on your marriage. You give up on your marriage if your spouse is a pedophile, a gangster, beating you, beating your kids. Really extreme cases, then you got to say, you know what, this isn't working out. But usually that's not what's going on. Those cases are very extreme. So there are steps that I discovered work. And I offer these steps in our courses for men and for women, and I've written a couple of books, but I'm going to take you through these steps because they are so valuable. And as you could see, I don't have any notes in front of me. I know this stuff so well because I've been doing it for so long, and I've seen all of the successes, and I know that this is what works. So you might even want to write down the steps. Now the first step is sort of interesting, and no one would ever imagine what it would be. The first step is to master your mind. Why? Because the way things are going now is not working for your marriage. And you could say it's your wife's fault or your husband's fault, but you're half of the marriage, and when you make a positive effort, it overwhelms the stagnation of the other person if they don't want to work on it. So these steps are really important because the energy that you put into it will still turn your marriage around, even if your spouse is not into it. So the first step is to learn how to master your mind, and you won't master it in a week or a month or a year, but you start progressing. And why do you have to master your mind? Because we are mostly operating based on our habits of thinking, our habits of reacting to things. Our habits control us. We don't stop and think. When you learn how to master your mind, and I have techniques and methods for doing this, then you, the person, the soul, if you will, you are engaged in your marriage. and you're not just reactive. And then they're not just being reactive to you being reactive, and we break the cycle that has really diminished the positives of your marriage right away. We start with that, mastering the mind. Where have you ever heard that before? As you start to master your mind, and there's steps, then we start introducing you to, you might say, the rules of the road. We talk about what is the correct behavior in a marriage, and what do I mean by that? This is really important. Correct behavior is defined by only two things. Is it making me and us happier? That's number one. Is my behavior, the actions that I'm putting into my marriage, is it making us happier? And if it's not, then it isn't good. It's really that simple. It's binary. The other criteria for the right behavior in marriage is it pouring love into my partner, thus the marriage? Because we get married, really, for only two real reasons. One is we want to be happier, and two is we want to experience unconditional love, often referred to as marital love. So those are the two big steps. I'm not going to break it down further, although it's important that in the process you learn about communication, marital communication, which is very different from all other kinds of communication. Marital communication, you have to learn how. You learn how to prioritize things. You learn how to break those habits by controlling the mind, and then insert new habits into your mind so that you become more and more marriage friendly. Now, when you do this, you start moving in the right direction, and your heart starts to open up, and then you're not asking the question anymore of, is it time to give up on my marriage? Because you are experiencing for yourself that the path that you're on, the one I just described, is moving you in the right direction, and really quickly, it's a relative term, I know, and it does take longer for some, but really quickly, you start feeling better about yourself, about your spouse, and about your marriage. Most importantly, you can see clearly that what you're doing is making a difference. And you know, I love telling this story. Many years ago, I bought some land. It was during a bad time, and I bought some land. I lived in Connecticut at the time, and so I got this land in a fire sale, you might say, from a bank. And I got 58 acres of land for $52,000 or $53,000. And it was all buildable land. It was great land. And it was surrounded on almost four sides by state forest. It was beautiful. So I took my wife, we just had a child, and I said, let's go look at our land. I was real excited. 58 acres of land, by the way, is a lot of land. And so we parked the car. Obviously, it was in a remote area, so there were no cars coming or going. Parked the car and started walking into the land. And it was winter. And my wife was carrying our little baby, and it had been cleared a little bit, but now there was all this tall grass. So before we knew it, I was lost. I didn't want to tell my wife. And in Connecticut, starting about October, the sky is overcast. You can't tell by looking up which way is east and west. So I was lost. I didn't tell my wife, and we're wandering around and pretending we're just looking at this rock and looking at that rock. And I was praying like crazy. Finally, we got to the road. And I was so relieved. Now, I didn't even know which way the car was parked. My car wasn't right there, but I was on the road. And I was relieved, and I was happy, because I knew the road would take us out of the trouble that I had gotten us into. You're in the same predicament. Your marriage is in trouble. I'm offering you the road. More than what I had at the time, I offer you direction with milestones, so you know exactly what to do and how to get out of your trouble. And the good news, the great news, is that when your marriage is working well, you experience the two great gifts of marriage that you can't get anywhere else. Ongoing, ever-increasing happiness and ever-expanding love. And I'm not kidding. So that's it. So is it time to give up on your marriage? Probably not. Probably not. You now have something you can do to turn it around, because your husband or your wife, you married them for a reason, but it's gotten lost in the chaos of getting lost because you didn't know how to be married. Subscribe to this channel. There's so much to learn. But if you're at this stage, you got to do more than that. One of the courses, whether it's the course for men or the course for women, and don't say anything to your spouse about it. We really have a high respect for free will. We don't want you to try to manipulate them or blame them or make them look like even half of the problem. You just take it on and see what happens. I'm Paul Friedman. I founded the Marriage Foundation, and I'm glad you found us. God bless and take care.